I'll begin our committee meeting today with our council president, Kate Lakato. Kuki mātou kia kaha mai ngā māngai ko whiriwhiri hia mo Sherry o te whahi me te ngāka auaha, me te hakamahi ngā pūkinga, me te whātauranga I roto I ngā wānanga me ngā whakataunga, kia katuri ai te tai napuri e matatikana, tūko taiana, kamutu, whiki anō I te oranga o tō tātai rohe, ka tau anō I ngā taki o te rohe I runga I te tika me te pono. Lord, we ask that through council discussions and decisions, the representatives we have elected may govern the whānau district with imagination, skill and wisdom to achieve a fairer and more united community that enhances the well-being of our district and solves the district's problems in efficient manner. Apologies for Councillor Rakina and Deputy Mayor Stratford for today's difficult meeting. Do I have any other apologies to take? All right. For a seconder? Yep. Thank you, Councillor Research. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed or abstentions? That's okay. All right, we're going straight into things. Item 4.1, confirmation of previous minutes on page 10 of the agenda. I'll move if I can get a second. Thank you, Councillor Research. Did you pick up anything today?
I didn't see anything.
Councillor Kappa.
I think on page 1. On page 2, Simon Page.
Page 1 and page 1 you were an apology, but then page 2 you were in favour. Can you confirm if you were or were not?
I know I was on leave.
We can make sure we were
Yeah.
any sitting motions. We've got your wide work on the family. We knew that you begrudgingly wanted to do that motion. Tēnā tui whāhira. Anything else? Motion, all those in favour say aye. Those opposed, abstentions, that's carried. Now we're going to item 5.1 on page 19. All those in transport portfolio reports. Thank you, Councillor Rivers. Secondly, we'll go to our members for the update. Transport portfolio holder, member Corp.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's just two things that I wanted to draw my colleague's attention to today. Last week was Road Safety Week, and a press release was put out by the Northern Advocate, and I'm not sure if you all saw it, but there's one paragraph in there which is attributable to the Northern Road Policing Manager, Inspector Anne-Marie Pritchard, and I'll read it to you. In 2024, 22% of our deaths and serious injuries on the network involved alcohol. Similarly, speed contributed to 33% of deaths and serious injuries on Northland's roads in 2024, while 24% of those killed or seriously injured in light vehicles in Northland were not wearing a seatbelt. Northland's figures are the highest in the country. That's not a good story, and I just wanted you to be aware of that one. The second one is I did a lagoima to NZTA. I am very concerned about the government's proposal to move to electronic RUC and what that might mean for our funding. I received a response this morning and it's very, very long, but I just want to read you one paragraph. In November 2024, NZTA estimated that RUC non-compliance equated to 172 million approximately per annum. But that is money we are not getting to spend on our network, and it's something that we need to be mindful of as funding regime. They do not keep records specifically for the far north. And that's it from me this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Transport portfolio member McNally.
Yeah, just feeling lots of complaints about the road condition, which has occurred after a bit of wet weather, or long dry and then wet. Since the rain, both networks, north and south, have got between 4 and 5 graders doing the rounds. So they're in pitch mode, but where I've been driving, it's improving slowly.
Any questions for our transport portfolio holders? Councillor Roos?
Yeah, councillor Court. Yeah, actually, even though it probably costs truckies like myself, but electronic work I think is a good idea. And the reason for often we've said, what is the traffic on our road from trucks when they are basically logging companies out of road renewal at Auckland? With electronic ruck, you know exactly where they've been and be able to get an estimate, a very accurate estimate. Just how many Ks, 10 Ks probably even, done on our road. So I think it's a good idea.
I've got a question for all of us, really. We're in the paper again. We're always in the paper, but we're in the paper specifically for Cable Bay.
Lock Road, which I visited.
I know that post cyclone Tam, and then the storm after that, and the storm after that, our roads have been in a little bit more worse for me than usual. And when I went back home after Tam to Miti, our road was in quite a bad state, but it's been graded since then. Have you both been experiencing kind of higher than demands or RFSs for our roading in general? Or?
I haven't myself. I did read that article and there was someone commented about it from LinkedIn, so I did reply to that poster on LinkedIn. The challenge that we have, as Steve articulated, was we've come off a long drought. It's now, we've been into Cyclone Tam and had unprecedented rainfall, higher since 1942, according to the paper. It takes a toll on the network. And when I read that article and they talked about their culvert, I tried to paint a picture to the poster on LinkedIn that we've got 2,500 kilometres of network. So that's 5,000 kilometres of roadside drainage, because you've got both sides. Put that into perspective, I went on to Google and I said, how far would 5,000 kilometres take me if I left Kerikeri? And I end up in Perth. So with our resources, it takes time to get around the network. And people don't necessarily see that when they write in and complain to us, just how large our network is. And they have to start somewhere and they'll get to them eventually. At the same time, we got significantly increased funding this time round through the National Land Transport Fund, and our team are actively working on drains and culverts. So we will see improvement, but it is going to take time. I also noted in the report that Ed commented that we can't get out and check the culverts all the time. It's just physically impossible for us. We don't have the money. So we are going to have to continue to rely on homeowners to clean their culverts by their driveways, mow their grass verges and try and keep their vegetation out. Now, they won't want to hear that, but if they don't do it and we do it, it's going to mean a significant rate rise and it will be unsubsidised. So I think there's some comms we could do here. I'm not saying anything any ratepayer will want to hear though, but there is some really good comms that we can get out there and talk about how this is a partnership. People want to comment.
I think you just have to think of, just basic geology up here. We've got a lot of clay soils, we've got alluvial flats and reclaimed land. I think it's just going higher. In the dry, the clay shrinks, creates cracks, And then the rain we had, well, there was a reasonable amount, it was quite light over a long period, so it seeps right in, saturates your subsoil, and then you get the collapse underneath everything. The other thing is the graders are busy on our construction season, so they're doing rebuilds, rehabs. Now that they're back on deck, they can actually be shaped, and now we've got a bit of moisture. It might actually be able to reshape the roads, crown them, get the fines out of the water tables. We'll get there, and the culvert cleaning's been, we've done a heap of it, which had been left unattended for a long time. Just be patient. Keep going.
Councillor Radich.
Anne just mentioned about culverts and we got, council's got road inspectors. What are they doing? What are those guys doing? I've actually spotted several of them. That's their job. Now, the biggest problem we have regarding our roads, and I've tried to explain this to the guy, Edward Varley, before he left. See, Fulton Hogan have a scheme. They have a process that if they go up to Harper, they'll go up to Harper and go to the road, and the next time they'll go, it'll be another 3 months, and then they'll go up and do it. And that's where we fall apart, because we get all these RFSs coming in about how bad our roads are. And as I tried to explain to Edward, that this is where council should come in, and this is where our contractors, Fulton Hogan, should react straight away. I'm going to say I live on Spoons Road. Only a few weeks ago, the road was bad. The grader came up. I made contact with Gavin West. The grader came up, graded the road. A few weeks later, the road was back to what it was, and they came back and did it. And that's how it should be done. But Fulton Hogan said to us, they have a scheme set out, and that's where it all falls apart. That's where it falls apart. I mean, so Whangapai don't see a grader for 4 or 5 months after they have their road graded. Doesn't matter how bad it comes. You just got to wait till that allocated time comes. And if we solve that problem, then we wouldn't have all these RFSs coming in. I can't make it any bloody simpler. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Radich. I think that answered your question, Nick. We'll go to Councillor Foy.
I went out to Campbell Block Road and can someone please mute Councillor Radich? I went and looked at the culverts as well. Our own council engineering standards are not met by the size of the culverts on our own roads. So we have our own engineering standards, which every person who puts in a road or driveway, a new vehicle crossing has to meet. The size of the culverts on that road were only 250 millimetres. This is across the main crosswalk of the road. Further to that, there was quite a number of them that were blocked. I took photos of them that included the culvert numbers so that I could lodge that. The other main issue with the road is there's no crosswalk. And this is a common issue with many of our metal roads, as Councillor McNally has raised, and it's not going to be fixed overnight. And I haven't been given the list of whatever it is, our 10-year program to increase the base course of our metalled roads. So we do have crosswalk, but we have to start somewhere. So I was hoping that we would be given the list, just like we're given the list for reseals for sealed roads, so that we had that program of works. So when they do the quote unquote unsealed road rehabs, and I thought they were going to use that greens program that they used in Kaipara. Page, yeah. But I feel like we haven't had any updates about that, or it's sort of fallen off the work program. So I wasn't sure from our portfolio holders what type of feedback we get about doing that capital works or if it's done in terms of repairs and maintenance as part of the OPEX budget, or how we access the funding for that.
Can I just quickly respond, and then Tanya can probably add in? Our elected members at the table will be aware I've been compiling a list of outstanding actions from Koukou. And one of the outstanding actions was the lift of unsealed road rehab to come to the committee. In the last agenda, it was reported that that's still a work in progress. So it is my expectation that it will come together.
Commentary there, please.
If I may, thank you, Mayor Moko. Obviously, a number of roads with significant damage from those two weather events. We do have the funding available, and fixing the roads isn't going to be based on, those individual events in those individual situations, but absolutely we can have a look at regularly and routinely be looking at undersized culverts, particularly undersized culverts. You're right, we can't ask the public to comply with our engineering standards and guidelines and then have a number of other assets in the district that don't comply, that are also then creating further or causing further damage to our other assets. So certainly happy, again, not road by road, we have to have a look at a number of factors in that, but certainly happy to have a look at those undersized culverts on that particular road.
A question about that. So I just articulated that we've got 5,000 kilometres if you factor in both sides of the road. Engineering standards and guidelines were adopted fairly recently. I can't remember an engineering standard and guidelines that would have existed when some of the roads were created would not have required kind of culverts that we have now to adapt to climate change. So what is the process that we are going to use, given the sheer magnitude of the job that we're facing, to understand in the lead up to putting our next funding application in what we need? It's easy to be critical, but historically, my time, a lot of this work was not funded by the National Land Transport Plan, the National Land Transport Fund. So we need to put our best foot forward. So at the next funding round, we're really clear about what it is we want and why, because telling the story is half the success of getting the money. So hearing the commentary from elected members, circling back, what are we going to do? And it can't just be asset management plan all the time. It has to be, what are we going to do to ensure we put in our best foot?
I think we need to do a number of other things as well on any and all of our assets. We quite often have a look at the cost of things and say, well, let's do that because it's cheaper, or there's one particular issue with one particular road, and that can't be our driver. I think we also, particularly in transport, need to have a look at the criticality and the impact to those particular users, because if you have somebody that is very close to town but can get there and the road isn't the best versus somebody who is further away, who genuinely can't get to town to get bread and butter, then that needs to form part of the work. But you're right, it's not just an AMP, it's not just about the condition of the road. I think it needs to be all the other factors as well, and then prioritise. So a clear list of prioritisation. I think that the team have historically done great work of putting together assets that need to be replaced based on their condition, but from a broader view in our district, we need to have a look at other factors as well to then get our list and put the best foot forward.
I'm surprised at the question, really. I've been banging on about the asset management. It lacks detail. RAM data is just, I've been asking for that. I've seen glimpses of it. But the, Yeah, we should know our arterial roads, our link roads, our feeders, and then you can prioritise your work stream around your drainage and all the rest of it. So this is nothing new. This is bloody railing. This is roading 101, and that shouldn't have lapsed anywhere in the process, which I keep asking about RAM. But the workshop this afternoon, you never know, we might find some.
Before we go to our water portfolio holder, who is present, can I just flag, and I can see we've got Ken in the room. Councillor Court articulated the not perceived the realistic problem, but limited perception of that for like residents of Cable Bay who want their bloody road and drains sorted. But that's only 3 Ks of 2,500 Ks. But we get these monthly reports that have like everything that the contractor in the far north and the mid north. We used to have graphics that the comms team would, I don't know who used to make them, but we'd have all these things like we would inspected, we'd fixed so many bridges. Can you start doing that again? Or there's a story to be told in this. I might compare it. I said this last time, a month ago. There's a story to be told in this. Someone pick it up, sit down with it and go like, but then it's gonna be a story that makes sense. So like, look at this. For the far north contract, Fulton Hogan inspected 132.141 kilometres of roads. That's fantastic. How much is that of the total? And then of that inspection, how many faults did they find and then program in to get sorted? Because that's the story to tell to people. They're like, you're stupid council, all you do is sit in Koukou and Mr. Mayor in the office and you don't do anything. No one's doing anything. And you guys are blind to everything. And I drive on the stupid road every single day. Well, guess what? This tells what is happening, but you need to articulate it to the people in a format that they can understand easily. So, I don't know.
Mr. Chair.
What we used to do, and then now it's deleted off the website because I tried to find it. Because it was good. It's gone. The page doesn't exist anymore. I don't know why there's a conspiracy or something. But can we just make that happen?
So, Mr. Chair, can we get back on track? I just we've got a workshop this afternoon and we can certainly go and discuss all that and look at some options. I thank you for everybody for the reports. I think there's a lot of concern around the table. And I think there are many issues that we can do with this afternoon.
Water portfolio, member Radich. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Just before Councillor Rowage, I just wanted to give an update about what actually happened with that road. Last night I got photos of the response from contractors to RFS about that road. Instead of going with a spade and going and cleaning out each of the ends of the culverts, they just went and cleaned one culvert. They got a digger to clean one culvert. And it's funny because it's ridiculous. And so the residents had messaged me that after all of that, instead of the way they're reporting, go and check the culverts on each road, which we've asked for reporting on, they just pick and choose which culverts they're going to do. And the one they cleaned was the one that was completely blocked. But what is the threshold? Why can't they just go road by road? We've done this road, clean it out. I went and got my boot and I got my gumboot and I cleaned it out with my gumboot because I don't know why the contractors don't have spades anymore, but they can borrow mine if they want. But I guess that's a methodology for the contract. Why aren't they putting per road? Any response for that?
Through Mayor Court, I don't have a response to, but we can certainly talk to about the reporting and how it's reported to be clearer.
In the methodology, like for the culvert cleaning, how do they pick and choose which ones they do or not? Do they do it road by road or do they just pick one culvert on each road?
I will confirm back to you.
That'd be great.
I suspect that they take the instruction, but happy to have further conversation about methodology that allows the water to flow.
Thank you.
Councillor Radich, anything to update us on as water portfolio holder?
Yeah, just before I get on the portfolio, Mayor Moko, I just got phone calls from Lataki Road, Kimberley Road, Snelga Road, Spirits Bay, and Fryer Road. Condition of their roads, and I have informed a certain gentleman in Fulton Hogan, and those roads will be done. Not a problem. We'll get it done. Same with Block Bay Road up at Cable Bay. Right, bye-bye sewage. Anyone tell me, has the land been bought? That sewage pond's where they got it down by the Eastern Rugby grounds. Has the land been bought? Do you know at this stage? Because we got till the 27th of October, 2027. Any progress there, Tanya? Or
Through you, Mayor Moko, no, I'm not aware that any land has been purchased in Taipa to date.
okay, well, we need to look at that because it's not too far away from. It's only less than 2 years. As you all know, we've had rain in the last 6 weeks, some heavy rain, and I have to say that the sewage ponds in our area, particularly down Burnett's Road, has held up very, very well. I've been doing checks on that, and we need to remember when we do get heavy rain and floods, it doesn't matter how good your sewage system is, you're going to have overflows. So I only need to look at Auckland last week. They closed 26 beaches because of raw sewage. So that's important to remember. No, that's it, Mayor Moko. Thank you.
Any questions, water-related questions for portfolio holder? Councillor Court.
Signal for the chief executive. My concern that when elected members are instructing contractors, does that deviate them from the current work stream, and does that therefore have an impact on them? I think we need to explore that a bit more because I'm hearing it more and more, and it gives me some concern.
Noted. Thank you.
I can see Councillor Kliskovich is, yes, Councillor Kliskovich, we just on item 5.1, water and transport portfolio member reports. Have you had anything to report back on your water portfolio? Otherwise, I'm going to move the.
No, nothing to report other than really pleased to see that there's going to be a type of inquiry, investigation / into the Sweetwater aquifer. Tēnā koe.
Kia ora, thank you. All right, we will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed or abstentions? That is carried. We're now going to go to item 6.1 on page 20, outstanding resolutions and actions up for hand. Like to get a mover. Councillor Vusic, seconder. Second. Councillor Vusic.
No comment.
Just noting that we now have an action point list with the staff title, the staff member position who will hold responsibility for that. So good to see, and also just noting on there one, because it's come up and I know we'll pick it up, Councillor Hauki, how to read it when we get to that report, the Kaitaia Airport Working Group establishment, which we have been waiting 6 questions for, as on there as an action point, and I know that we'll get an update when we get to that report too.
Can I request that we add one in here as preparation for the next national land transport plan? Colleagues will be aware that when I took on this portfolio a few years ago, we were moderated down heavily in our application, and we under an investigation, and at that time the investigators came back and said that you weren't getting the money that you wanted because you weren't telling the story about why you needed it. Now we changed that. narrative, but something seems to have dropped off between the end of MTA and now, so we need to pick that up again.
Right.
Thank you. And councillor Foy, you'll notice here, on the top of page 25, rehabs.
All right, we'll put the motion, all those in favour say aye. Oh, sorry, okay, how do we just?
It's not on here, but I just wanted to know from the last minutes whether the redwood trees have been cut down at the Kitty retirement village that.
We don't have our, we'll pick that up later, but we don't have our CE and, the GM who is overseeing that is at, Koukou Cemetery today. All right, we'll put the motion, all those in favour say aye. Those opposed or abstentions, that's carried. If you could have turned to page 26, item 6.2, infrastructure working group updates with our report there. Like I get a move. All right, I'll move. Seconded by councillor Francis, thank you for that.
The house is asleep, I think.
Anything from you for our working group updates, councillor Lucic?
No, I made comments in the past though. It's good to see, by the way, the Hapu will be involved in a lot of these, because I think that's great, and hopefully we won't have costs and challenges going forward. But I would like to see some action happening, especially as I said before, ways we can save costs. I know we have 3 waters done well coming up. Sure, there's one of our big areas, so noted, it's all.
Councillor Halkett, how do we go?
Sort of just to ask protocol the corridor beforehand about with all the big rains, I don't know who said it, but you know, there's going to be that overflow from the sewerage ponds, and I note that we were asked to respond to the Minister of Emergency Management about things that councils were asked to deal with, but either hadn't sort of expected it, or so that was one extra. And I talk about Taipa because this is done from I think the month of March. You know, that there was a big outflow there to the Taipa area, and they weren't sure whether somebody had dug a drain and offloaded that water, or that it had just breached the lower end of the ponds. And I just sort of really want to note that I suppose in situations like that we might be dealing with, I think it was Councillor Radich saying 26 beaches were closed in Auckland. Well, I know Taipa was closed. I don't know about other areas, but you know, when we're working with these iwi hapu groups, they probably have a faster response to try and deal with something than the council. And so I note that the local working group with Andreas, you know, took some steps to figure out what to do next. There was kōrero that it could have been an illegal drain or could have just breached, what to do in the next time. So I think that was something you asked us to do, Koukou. So I'm just imagining that other areas have faced the same thing, and the quick response that it would be good to have, but like you're talking about using your gumboot to kick through a culvert. You know, you don't have to sit there and wait for a 3-week RFS not to be answered when you could do it yourself. But I just sort of want to acknowledge that that sort of stuff. That, you know, in an emergency situation, we might have to defer to the local community group to just take action to rectify something if it's going to.
Councillor Halkett, how do we know? If I could, what you've just shared is fantastic in terms of what the minister was asking. The minister has sent a letter just to me, saying my feedback and other messages, and has purposely left staff out of that because he wants free and frank opinions and feedback and examples on where the legislation is letting us down with powers that need to be, and how powers need to be delegated in emergency situations. because other regions have experienced issues at a leadership level for elected members with the decision-making powers for opening up lakes or river mouths and all that sort of stuff. So what you'll capture there is a perfect one we can inform back to the minister. But if you put it in writing for me, then I'll make sure that somebody there with some good stuff from Councillor Court as well. And reminders to other members, a good reminder to other members, but make sure you check that out and give some feedback to these, because we definitely want to give all of these different examples to the minister. He's asked for free for what's it called, a candid opinion on what the failings are. So let's give it to him. I'll go to Councillor McNally and Councillor Wood.
Just looking at the next two items, both headed up infrastructure, one's working group and the other's compliance. Are all the working groups listed on here? And the next question is, do the district facilities programs fit in here? And the reason I ask is I thought we had working groups relating to the cycle trail, Koukou gym, Koukou library, Yahoo sports, Waipapa sports field. And what about the trials, the electric regulation trials at Koukou? Don't they all have a working group as well? Just seem to be missing some stuff. And the only one that I see where a sports complex is involved is under compliance on the next document, which is the septic system at the Koukou Sports Complex. So where's the rest of it?
Through you, Mayor Moko, the consents, the list of working groups that are in here are required as conditions of consents on those water and wastewater treatment plants. The Kirikiri Sports Complex made its way in here for non-compliance, but we can certainly add the other working groups, all of the infrastructure working groups where I certainly hadn't actually even thought about the cycle trail or other working groups, but certainly happy to add those into our reporting moving forward.
Well, if you look at the annual plan and our work stream program, some of the biggest cost centres outside roading, water and wastewater, it's massive. So I just think we need a lot more detail around it, please. It might be here, but I haven't seen it.
It's not there. Councillor Wood.
I'm not sure on to the next topic, but I was just for the previous items that need to be followed up. What's dropped off the list is the contracts for the reserves. I believe this committee is the committee that deals with that. We've asked for many months now, if not a year, to have the details of that, when the spraying's going to be done, what the levels of service we should expect, and what is the requirement of the contract, because I walk out into the reserve and this morning it's very embarrassing. It's almost like up to mid-thighs. And this is a waterfront, supposed to be a level 1 frequently mowed area. So I'm not sure if everyone else has got grass that high, but my understanding is part of the contract is that in the springtime, we ask for a higher frequency of mows to address the fact that grass grows longer in spring. So that has not been done. What is the accountability of the contractor? And who do we talk to about that?
In lieu of Ruben not being present, he's on another important mission for today. This come up in our agenda preview, I think it was. We're going to be having I think it was a workshop, but we're coming up to 1 year for our city care contract. A review of that contract to be coming to council. I don't know what's on this committee, I can't remember. But and then ongoing reporting. Monthly, Ruben is on it, but pick it up and can you just make sure it's signed? Because you're right, and all I do is agree. All right, we'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed or abstentions, that's carried. We're going to go to item 6.3 on page 33. Infrastructure compliance, I think it is. Yes. And it's been moved by councillor McNally, thank you. And seconded by councillor Kappa, thank you. Any commentary, councillor McNally?
I'll say for the right we put on.
Councillor Kappa?
I just wanted to make a comment in terms of page 35. In wastewater treatment sites, I noticed that the Kayo, Koukou, Kiri, Langi Puta appear to be those that are compliant. That's my interpretation. And maybe possibly Russ, but I'm just, my comment is around those that aren't compliant. I noticed that you've got conditions 1 to wherever, and I'm just sort of thinking, Koukou here is at a non-compliant but enforcement action taken as an example. How that's being addressed. Is that a regular occurrence? Have some sort of order like that?
Through you, Mayor Moore, just on page 39, here's Koukou here and the reasons for the non-compliances. The first under the yellow line there. So Opunoni has had that abatement notice for quite a while now. We had 4 12 months ago. Opunoni recently been desludged and a few other things on that particular plant to get it back on track. And you'll see that Ahipara 1 has gone from what was red with the UV that's been in there for about 6 months now. It is now reading green. So slowly making our way through our abatement notices and those non-compliances.
You know what, I'll just be honest, I forgot to read the fixed agenda that has before, but I did read the 2-pager, and I just noted that even though it's still bad, nothing's gotten worse, and 2 of the plants have gotten better, from red or orange to green lights, so it's turning the lights green.
Yeah, green.
Councillor McNally?
No, thank you.
We'll put the motion, those say aye. Those opposed or abstentions, that's carried. We're going to go to page 44 now to the capital program delivery update. Moved by councillor McNally. Second, go to you, councillor McNally.
Page 44. Under the executive summary, it says the project being reported to exclude roading, solid waste, unpaid reactive works and resource conservation. So the capital program for the year is still 51 million. Number of physical projects that carry forward 28.2, number of physical projects 120. My question there is, does this mean all projects reported have consents, land acquisition and procurement in place, i.e. they're shovel ready? And the second question to that is, how much of the ones that this report excludes, what's the money there and what's the carry forward? You want to come back to me? I'll keep asking questions if you like. You just write them down.
Okay.
And then under the background, it says projects currently being delivered include year 1 of the LTP, 24-27. And carry forwards from 24, financial year 24, ending 24, and the combination of these as well as some unpaid works. That's all fun. There's still no numbers there. Go down to the second to last paragraph. Where there's a nice little sentence there. Capital work rating impact of interest and depreciation charges is not triggered until the financial year after the physical works have been completed. That's very nice. I'd still like to know what the rate impact will be. We need to plan ahead. I just think we're missing quite a bit of info in this report. Go over to page 46 and you've got carry forwards as represented by activity. And there's what I was talking about a minute ago, district facilities. We don't see it in infrastructure working group or compliance updates. And compliance, I would have thought would include resource consents. There's 45 projects there at 10.4 million for district facilities alone, with 4 listed as a multi-year project. And that's something that's always annoying, where it states that the a lot of these carry forwards are known as multi-year projects. Well, that's cool. Don't have the total project cost in year 1, and it's going to be carried forward for the next 3, 5, 10, whatever it might be. Identify each yearly cost, please. And then if we go to the bottom of page 47, it says unplanned reactive works include community board delegation budgets. Do you have a line in the annual plan for the community board delegation budget? Page 51, district facilities again, Rangatahi Maritime Boat Ramp, still shows there at 3.6 million. Realise this is probably as at the end of March, but isn't that a goner? Or is it still sitting in the funding? And then you've got a list from page 53. There's a whole list of a whole lot of things that adds up the different bits and pieces, capital works and carry forwards. And it's an awful lot of money. And this type of non-delivery will go back to what Councillor Court brought up before when we were looking at the National Land Transport Funding and getting the money. Often the reason we get the money rejected is we haven't spent last year's in the roading budget. You've got to spend what's put up. You've got to be really well organised to spend it. That's me. Thank you.
Get a response and then a second will go and then Councillor Harawira.
Through Mayor Moko, I'll do a double act with Mary Moore for the parts that I don't capture. No, not all the projects are shovel ready right now. We would have to confirm, and no problem with this, but confirm the final budget numbers and then ask finance to run the rating impact of that position. Yes, there is a line for the community board budgets. So those unplanned reactive.
I've got a question there. Can you answer at the same time?
Yes.
Because when I read this, I got hoha saying those were unplanned or reactive and unspent budgets. Because when I think of every month, actually we better reschedule some because it's falling off my pillar. I meet with our community board chairs and they're always ripping to go and sink the teeth into stuff and too late. And then we've got all of this unspent budget. I'm just assuming that it's because they haven't had the staff go to them for how they need to spend it. But it's not them, we at our operational level, we are dragging the chain somehow with chief managers. So if you have a hui with a Delamere Community Board and say, here's your budget for Northern budget, 300 grand for parks and reserves. Here's your Northern budget, 15 grand for amenity lighting. Here's your Northern budget for bollards, signs and tables, 30 grand. Here's your town beautification allocation. Hit go, what do you want to do with it? I'll spend it yesterday and then they can probably even get someone to do all the work as well, or cheaper than what we'll be able to do, and it'll all be done. And then this will be, so can you,
Yes.
what's the gap there? Or am I assuming?
There's a huge gap. Huge gap. We do, sorry. The town, just take, for instance, the town beautification budget. But that was part of our finance part where we can allocate funding to, that would be good. There has to be someone to do a project, they have to present it. Yeah, it would be really great if we could have some staff help on these sort of budgets going.
Thank you. Otherwise, what happens is we see this unspent at a council level and we say, then we obviously don't need it, let's wipe it. But if you carry on with that.
The Rangitane budget will stay there until certainly the end of the financial year. So the reforecasting happens regularly, but only a handful of times a year. And if that needs to move because it's not going anywhere, then it will be moved at the end of the year. Now, those were my answers, Councillor McNally. I think there's probably a little bit more detail around the.
Can I ask for Rangitane? Our resolution was to not support appealing, but nothing about budget. Do we need to have a resolution to remove the budget or?
Make a comment. I would have made a motion to the council that said we would support it to the end of the resource consent process. Resolution not to support the appeal is contradictory to that notice of motion. Thomas Holdings Maritime have recommended to the board that they proceed the appeal. Barnum's Holdings board meets this month. I don't know if they've met yet or haven't met yet. They were going to consider that at their board meeting. The alternate motion moved by Councillor Hokea requires capital investment because she proposed a reduced program of work. We can't just arbitrarily reduce budget. We need to keep the budget in there and allow their process to reach its natural conclusion, because we don't know what it is yet. We don't know what a revised scope will be. We don't know whether the appeal will be supported or forward. Don't know what the outcome of that will be. I also wish to make some comments when it's my turn.
We'll go, I've limited my question already. First, Councillor Haukia Parawira, then Councillor Boyd, then Councillor Paul.
Kia ora koutou. Just really want to raise the notes that I mentioned in my email last night. Even I get here kind of flustered. So the main thing about Kaitaia Airport is, you know, before the lease was signed with my Taupō, the council position was we can't do any improvements on the airport because there's no lease signed. The lease is signed 6 months ago, and Senior Manager Garcia says that you know, we're on the way to forming a working group. I'm happy about that. But yeah, I am really concerned about the length of time about getting the runways repaired, especially in this heavy rain. I do see airport workers who are concerned with the impact of rain on the runway, and also the drainage issues. One wouldn't think there would be a drainage issue because it's hard pan up there, but it is, you know, they've got to be managed all of the time. So I'm really, really want to see that this becomes a priority project, because the roads get done by contractors. They send us reports, but we don't seem to be getting anything from Kaitaia Airport. And I just really wanted to bring up something that it's also not in this Whānau Holdings statement of intent for 2025. And the way this is read, that it could go over to 2026. Well, I don't think the Kaitaia community would like that. And the potential for a hazard because of these excess rains on the runway. I mean, I joke all the time about air barrier, you know, they're the only ones that can land and weather like they do in Kaitaata, these small planes. And I call them the surfers. But there are times that, you know, the wheels lift off the runway because the runway is unsafe. And so I don't see the sense of why it's taking a long time. I object to the amount of money allocated for concept. I mean, that would fix both runways, that amount of money. So I'm not sure what concept is for, whether it's for having the runways plus the upgrade of the airport and the fuel storage. I'm really not sure, but I just find it really strange that we can allocate that money for concept, but object loudly to mana whenua getting a 30-year payment up front so that they can develop what they wanted to develop. That aside, I just want to make sure at the CEO that becomes you know, a project that's delivered in a timely manner, not when somebody will attend to it when they've got time. It's actually a huge priority for the farmers. Yeah, that's all I really want to say, making sure that that happens. Yeah, waina no kia ora.
I had an update with Garcia this morning. Unfortunately, he's not here today, but this is a priority. The last couple of months, we were doing a project management agreement with Final Folders. I think we've been a little bit late in delivery is putting this working group together to communicate the plans to everybody. But as I understand it, the project is, the actual physical works is being put together. It absolutely is a priority.
Ka pai. And if it could come up in the ex-Koukou report, please.
Can I just Chief Executive Holroyd? I'm frustrated over this one, and so there is a shield for elected members for staff and staff for elected members. And this is one example of one that has plagued me in my mayoralty since I first got it. We finally celebrated the signing at Kaitaia last December, 5 months ago. To get to that point to celebrate, to have that funding agreement signed and the transfer of title, we had to put together a full business plan to the government to say, this is what the money's all going to be spent on, your money, this is our money that's gone in it. Here's all the total allocation and what it will be spent on. So I really struggle to understand how 5 months later, that signing was just the tick box. Everything was all had to be shown to, what's the name of that ministry that's got deleted now? Te Arawhiti, to show Te Arawhiti what we're going to do. So what I struggle to understand is how the past 2 months out of 5 months, we've been working on the funding project management agreement with Final Folders to get the work done. We know what work, I thought we already knew what work needed to be done. It's like, put it to tender and get the mahi done. Now we've missed a construction season and we're going into winter. So are we even going to be able to do the work over this winter, or are we going to be waiting until come September or October? And then poor Councillor Hauki Harawira stays up overnight over this sort of stuff on behalf of not just for herself, but for the 25,000 people that live north of the Mangamuka Ranges that use this vital piece of community infrastructure. That is unfair on her that she comes here so humbly and meekly to ask her questions of this council. And we say that it's a priority. When is it? Because where I sit as the mayor, and this is just one example of one project, I'm going, this isn't a bloody priority for us. And how can I go back to her and say, yes, every single week or every single month, I'll go back to her and say, I'm setting up this committee, then we're going to have actual oversight over it. And then we change GMs and this happens, that happens within this budget. And so I don't have oversight over it. And I can no longer go back to Councillor Hauki Harawira and other councillors to say, this is going to be sorted, because I don't have confidence. We finally have Ruben on board and we're getting things sorted, but when is when? What is what? How can we just keep getting all of these? And this, I'm using this as an opportunity to grandstand my frustration with the system and to speak on behalf of Councillor Haukian Harawira, who is holding back today on what she really should be sharing before this committee on just one specific topic. So if this is a priority for this council, Chief Executive, show it by doing, show it by action, not by words. And it wasn't a question, but that's just my rant, and now I feel better. So we're going to go to now, Councillor.
A positive thing for my first comment. I really like the way that the report is broken down into the way that it's in construction or procurement or design and planning. I don't actually know what design and planning means. I mean, I know in detail from my background what planning is, but what does that mean in this context? Can you explain? Because it's not separated into consenting, for example, or detailed design, or I don't know, land acquisition.
Okay, it's all of the above. So it is making sure that we have the land, that we have the consent, and we're not pushing it out to tender and then wondering how we're going to get to how we're going to build it without the right consent. We are at the moment putting all of that into a Gantt chart so that it's a lot easier to see.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, that there's a lot lumped into those two words. But thank you for breaking it down into that. Also with the waters for resource consents, the way that it's represented on page 51 into stormwater, water, wastewater, it's represented into like a budget form, instead of like the number of resource consents. Like, for someone to understand that, I don't think that's really helpful in terms of knowing the scale. Like, you could spend 4,256,000 on one wastewater consent, I'm not sure. And I think that's really important given the scale of the amount of work that we have to catch up on. It's just like with the roads. I don't want to know there's 2,500 culverts cleaned. I just want to know which roads they've gone down to check all the culverts on the road, per road. So it's like a staged approach and the methodology works. So just some feedback about that reporting. And I also like it how you've actually broken down into where the years are. So you've actually said, these are the multi-year projects, and actually specified them, because there's not that many of them. So the questions I had, my first question was about stormwater. In the rating policy for stormwater, that is only talks about capital. All the other waters have a split rate. They have a split rate, one for OPEX and one for capital, but stormwater, there's only one rate for stormwater. This capital works only talks about stormwater. How are we actually funding the operational maintenance of stormwater if we only have one rate for stormwater and this is only talking about CapEx? Do we only have a CapEx budget for stormwater? We have no maintenance budget for urban stormwater.
Condition of the assets would suggest that.
Through you, Mayor Moka, we have operational budget for stormwater in our waters operation budgets and contract.
But the way that we pay for it, how are we paying for that?
And there I will defer to, I'll ask Mary Moore for some help, Ms. Councillor Foy.
Through the chair. So water and wastewater are targeted rates. So stormwater is only targeted for capital aspect, and otherwise it comes, the stormwater operational budgets come with the other, like district facilities operations.
So based on that response, it's from the general rate.
Yeah.
And then the funding impact statement. So why I'm asking this question is because I think that our council has a fundamental flaw in the way that we collect money for stormwater maintenance. And so I'm raising this now because it's great that, for example, Kaitaia, $1 million of stormwater is finally being done, which hasn't been done for many years, it's been carried forward for more than 5 years, so great to see it being done. But we need to have the OPEX funding to maintain these assets. And if we don't get the finance right, we're never going to get the delivery right because there's no bucket of money to do the work. So I'm just highlighting this for the long-term plan because it needs to be addressed. And in my view, it has to be a targeted rate, just like the other 3 waters is done. Because if you're in a targeted rate area, so there needs to be split OPEX and capital for stormwater, just like potable water and wastewater. Can someone from finance just acknowledge that that's an issue? Anyone? Or am I wrong?
Can we please take that away, councillor Foy? We'll have a chat amongst ourselves in the break and come back to you, please.
Can you add one other question to that?
Same topic.
Same topic, and that is depreciated, is our stormwater assets depreciated?
So the other,
Include council point, I
I
know.
had 2 other topics. One was the Lake Ohia Hall. We got an email about that, which is great. And I can see there's a budget of $838,000 of renewals funding. My concern is that just because there's a renewals funding bucket there, that there's a directive or some sort of ideology that contractors and staff want to spend all that money. So, this isn't a joke, this is serious. These are old buildings that can be replaced like for like without any consent. You just put it in a ramp, for example. But why would you need to spend $838,000 on such an old building? And who determines the scope of that spending? And this is an issue as well, I think, that our mayor's raised with our community board. There's no link between the operations with the project managers and the scoping and coming back to the community board where the delegation falls and actually asking, what is it that's the issue that you need to sort? Oh, let's put an aluminium insert windows, for the whole building wouldn't cost that much. So when you look at that, I think that that's an example. Can you please ask the project manager to come to our board?
Through you, Mayor Moko, yes, absolutely. So that's not a target, it's a budget. We're not trying to hit that amount of money. Very, very conscious of achieving with the community boards, because that's where the directive as to what is to be built is coming from, and continuing to work with, I think the project manager has been involved with member Sabritsky recently as well. So that what is to be built comes with the support through the community board meetings from the board, and then we try and do that for as best price as we can, but certainly well aware, topic of the week, to be honest, that we're not trying to aim, and we shouldn't be trying to aim to spend all of the budget available, but to save anything that we can.
But we can expect that all these will then be carried forward.
At this time of the year, yes. So if there was a
With 5 minutes left for our current community board members, are these budgets just going to be carried forward and chosen by the new community board, or will you actually get project managers sitting with them so that they can allocate across projects for them?
correct, they'll have commitments out the door with that. So the things that we're carrying forward are because we've made a contract, we've made a commitment, and we need to pay the bill. But certainly Lake Ohia is underway.
And the last one I had was about when projects actually delivered, like multi-item projects, like we had the works in Turkey where we got $7 million of central government funding and then a further 600,000 for the town square. After all of the central government money has been spent, there's quite a lot of budget there still from because we got that extra funding. But those assets haven't come across onto the asset register, and because people have left and we don't have a staff contact, the community board, we've put in RFSs for all these items to, if there's been damages, but there's been no response as to who will actually fix them. They can't find all of the contracts that were done up from the project managers as part of the contract. So I'm not actually sure how this works about finalising, completing that project and that budget available, because there doesn't seem to be the operational staff coming to talk to the community board or to the working group at that time. And the previous project managers have been told to not do it anymore. So now we're moving to other project managers that have no idea about the project. Can that please be followed up so that we can know to complete spaces and also have the contact with the staff member?
Through you, Mayor Koukou, yes, if we can have a chat at lunchtime, Councillor Foy, we have a process. We have all of the staff sitting upstairs. There is a document to sign. And then it goes through the organisation to make sure we've capitalised it, make sure that our operations team have got that. Sounds like something's fallen down, but certainly plenty of staff available for that handover.
That was all done. It's just the spreadsheet of where the assets are. We have no idea.
Okay, we'll leave it.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Court and Councillor Kapa.
Thank you, Your Worship. I didn't have any questions specifically about the report, other than I noted then when Councillor Boyle was talking, the budget for Lake O'Hare Hall is 838 on one page and 437 on the next page. So I was just a wee bit confused. This item and the next item was the most controversy when we're putting the agenda together. And it's a new report and it's very much a work in progress. And it's clear from seeing here that it's not quite hitting its target audience yet. So rather than dissecting it at a meeting, I just wondered if it would be helpful if 2 or 3 of the members could sit down outside of the structure of a formal meeting with the staff and the CEO perhaps, and branch out what exactly it is that they want and how the report can be modified to meet the expectations. I think that would be a good of them moving forward. Apart from that, there's 25,000 culverts, Councillor Foy, 2,500.
Yeah, sorry.
I think I've met every single one of them. But I don't want this meeting just to become a beat up. It's really important that the stuff is tracked and monitored. So if that's workable, Charles and Guy and me mobile, perhaps we could do that with Steve and Felicity.
Councillor Court. Yep, we've got a yes, please, written on this paper next to me and to make that happen, please, Tanya. We'll go to Councillor Kapa.
Good. Page 47. At the bottom of the page, highlights bullet point number 5 completed stage 9 projects. Bullet point number 2, housing for the elderly healthy home, which is 2.3 million. Is there an update to that? Or, and then I just wanted to throw in just on page 53 where it talks about district facilities, the opening housing for the elderly. Current project status is complete. 30,000.
Sorry, what pages? Councillor Kapa?
The first was on page 47, it's the bottom of the page. And then the second one was in regards to page 53, I think. The district facilities, again, it's around housing for the elderly and local learning. Was that a complete, that's part of that 2.3 million?
Through you, Mayor Koukou, there was $2 million in this financial year that was only to be utilised for health and safety. So there was not that the funding referred to here is not for any further works divestment conversation. So there are some works that are being done at the moment. They're just about due to be finalised. There are some windows being replaced in some of the units for the draft stopping, the drainage goes on the underneath your house so that the moisture the moisture barrier. There are a couple of other heaters that need to go in there. So we're not using all of that. We're not upgrading any other units in that divestment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor McNally.
Firstly, I don't want the finance team doing any work on what the rate impact will be. The annual plans will be more important right now. My point was simply on 28.2 million, if you work at interest at 3.5%, that's 980,000 when it kicks in. If you're paying it debt loaded and depreciation at 2% is 560, that's almost 2% rate impact. That's all everybody around this table needs to know. So we just need to look at that long-term tail. And then that's without the annual operational expenditure, which is going to be more again. And all those things need to be factored in before we pick these projects off. And then the only other thing that refers to resource consent projects are reported in the infrastructure consenting status report, which is where. That's me. Thank you.
We'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed or abstentions, carried. We'll do this paper, then we'll go to a break. We'll do this item 6.5 and then we'll break on page 57. Transport Capital Works Program update. This is in the report. If we get a paper.
I'll move.
Councillor McNally. And from second. Councillor McNally.
Just two things. Could we make sure that our running staff check the Taupo Bay road seal quality? If we've paid for it already or there's a final payment, just check it please. There's been a couple of complaints that I've received. And the other one was on the page, what is it? 66. It refers to the Okaiha pedestrian crossing, design $20,000. I would have thought that would have been off the shelf. Surely a pedestrian crossing doesn't need to be redesigned in time. And there's a pedestrian crossing that's been there for as long as I can recall, 40 years. Do we need lights? Schools operate in the daytime, things like that. Thank you.
Oh, Elizabeth, may I defer you for a response? Thank you.
So through the chair, in regards to the seal quality, absolutely, we'll take a note and have a look at that before it's made. In regards to the design fee for the Okaiha pedestrian crossing, yes, there has been a pedestrian crossing there for years. However, what was approved by this committee was a raised crossing, which is not an off-the-shelf product. It takes into account many things, road width, gradient, and requires a detailed and specific design for that crossing.
I'd check the costing of that. Sounds exorbitant.
Councillor Foy.
It was just a question for this capital works. It's a similar question I raised this morning about culvert replacement and unsealed road rehabs. In the spreadsheet, I don't see any works that I'm aware of that actually are addressing those capitalized issues. And my understanding is those are capital works. These seem to only relate to splits, bridges, and sealed road rehabs. Is there any reason why unsealed road capital works aren't on this spreadsheet?
Through the chair, if you don't mind, I'm going to sit here so the members don't have to twist around.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So through the chair, the unsealed program does not sit with the capital works and renewals team. It actually sits within our maintenance team, and Apicali may be able to provide some additional clarification on that. The drainage renewals, so culverts and things like that that you're talking about, are all dispatched within our RAM asset management program. And bucketed type of fund that go towards those different activities. So we don't list them individually as a full project.
So I have a supplementary question. Are we able to ask, I guess, the staff member responsible, because it doesn't sound like Elizabeth knows the capacity of that program. It's really helpful to have this list, not only to know the capacity of the work program, but also to track its progress. How are we supposed to report to our community and bundle projects, like to get more efficiency with our budgets and do like a 3-year program of works if we don't actually have a list?
Chair, the answer we have, it's a renewal, so it says of the maintenance and operation, so it's all dispatched in the rep as well that we normally take out and export out and share it with anyone who asks for it, which is the same as the branded renewals. It's also sits under that. The renewals about.
Can you export it into a report
Yes.
or to an email to council?
So what I'm raising is, can this please be part of reporting every single transport meeting so that we have the list and know which roads and, you know, whatever the culvert numbers on the road, but also the list of the roads that are getting full rehabs. I think I sent an email to Ed and there were only 3 roads out of the whole district that were getting road rehabs, or those were the 3 that he gave me for unsealed roads. And I don't know why there would only be 3 out of the.
Chair, can I clarify that whether those are the only list that were left after all renewals that even completed? And that is the one that we will, because of the unsealed rehab, we normally program before summer and after summer because of that dry weather in between those seasons. So those were the 3 lists that are left to be done this month and next month. That was definitely for North area. That was what I think that rest will come.
But because the funding for central government is in 3-year cycles, do we not have a 3-year list of road rehabs?
There is.
Please, can we have that list in our reporting? Thank you.
Councillor McNally, want to reply?
Yes. So the one that alerted me to the design cost was a pedestrian crossing. I just added it up and it's actually 1.8 million 288. 1.8 million over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 30 projects. It's 1 minute divided by 30. So the project design is costing us averaging 61,000 per each. For me, the pedestrian crossing, I mean, we built one down here, where it is, where are we? Over here, outside the school down at Koukou, yeah. We've done them all over the place. I get the gradient, curb, got to shift a few things. I don't think it requires that amount of money. And maybe I'll retrain as an engineer. Thank you. I would like a critical review of that. But I'm not going to ask for it in front of the annual plan. We just need to keep our eyes on it, please.
We'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed or abstentions, that's carried. We're going to go on a 15-minute break now until 20 to 12. All those online. See you then. We're going to item 6.6 on page 67. Speed limit subject to reversal under the 2024 speed limit. I'll move if I can get a seconder.
Aye, second.
Under the rule, when this came through agenda preview, we just highlighted that our new government came in and made it very clear to the public that any pretty much that any speed changes would be reversed automatically. But then the rule actually came through and it's a story. So what we're seeing in this report is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of our roads that have had speed changes have to be reversed. And then we've got schools that also will be captured under the new rule. But 6 roads that have to be reversed is going to be different to what the public expects. To that point, we have a media release being prepared with better communication around the what, the why, the how, and also the costs. And that's all I have to share for now, Councillor Kiskovich. Any other members with questions? Councillor Cole.
One question. I see funding for this project, 500,000 has been approved. I can't remember the exact figure, but I think we spent 800,000 originally. Have we really done on quantifying how much of this 504,000 has been spent undoing what the 800,000 did, if that makes sense?
And if not, can we? That'd be good to know.
And there's 24,000 in design.
I want to know how much in the neck I need to take it.
Through the chair, when we put forward the funding amount to NZTA, we had a very short time frame in which to come up with that amount. And so we worked on the basis of how many salaries using previous contracts, doing this for Kerry Bay Islands for one, and then slapped a very hefty contingency on top to make sure we weren't short funded from NZTA. We're going through the actual detailed design of reversal at the moment and passing that off to one of our panel contractors. It looks to me as if it's going to come in at about half this amount. And that amount is for the reversal of speed limits. In working with the comms team, we didn't put any actual figures because we are in negotiation with the contractor.
I think the question would be asked, and I just want to be prepared to answer it. The community is aware that we spent, and I'll just say it, knowing that the rule was going to change. Now the rule's changed, we have to spend another 500,000. How much ratepayers' money was wasted? Good question.
Can you ensure that when we have the finalised figures, that information is brought back to us? So everyone knows. I think
One
question for research.
Yeah, page 31, Waipapa Road, top of the got the speed limit that's actually going down, so I read it right. No changes and instead of 80, and it's going down to 60. Is that am I reading that wrong? What's wrong? The current speed is going 80. Left. And it looks like it's dropping down to 60.
So through the chair, the speed limit that was set as part of the Kerry Bay Islands speed limit review took it from 80 to 60. What we're saying is that is not subject to reversal. That 60km/h speed limit is within the current range for that road. So not changing previously.
All right, we've got the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstentions. Carried. Now to item 6.
Is so inconsistent with my position to the thing.
Report position noted and recorded. 6.7 on page 74. County Food Service Contract March 25. Moved by Councillor Research, seconded by myself, Councillor Research.
Well, the only thing I know is just encouraging on page 75 to see the numbers there usually coming back up. I presume there was that dip because of COVID. Otherwise, again. So, other than that.
Any other members? Motion, all those in favour say aye. Those opposed or abstentions, that's carried. Now we're going to our transportation maintenance and renewals activity update March 25 on page 77.
I'll move.
Moved by councillor McNally,
Aye.
seconded by councillor Haraki Harawira. Councillor McNally. Councillor Haraki Harawira.
Yeah, I just really am appreciative that the pangaru splits have been done and also looks like there's sealing being done outside Waimirirangi Marae, which would mean that would take one of the 57 marae off my list, so it'll be down to 56 marae. So just ngā mihi ki tērā North Hokianga Roading Group. And
That marae was on this, sorry, councillor.
not that?
That marae was already sealed out.
Oh, well, so it's not a new one.
Yes. But we're still happy with it overall.
Okay, we're happy, but so I still have 57 on the list.
Any other members?
I just had a question about the monitoring of the contracts and using technology, and I asked this last meeting, I'll ask it again because it hasn't been done. About having cameras or GPS on the graders so that we can report back without actually having to do anything, as well as the culvert cleaning using the technology. There's a new tech person that came to our community board, and he's very, very knowledgeable, and a lot of other councils are using technology in order to do the reporting and monitoring of contracts. And I don't see why we're not doing that with our contractors for roading. And also having that comms aspect with where the grader is going the next week. Because these reports are all retrospective. And my understanding is that we're going to take the information from Friday notices that show where the grading will be and what works will be done, that next week can actually put out press releases to the community so that we can share them to our public. But that hasn't been actioned, even though I've asked 3 times. Is there any time frame that will be actioned, or is there just no
Can
intent?
we put a asterisk with this is what is planned but may not actually happen as a, so no one can hold us. But then just actually put that on the website in its own little spot. So then Councillor Foy, because the second, third meeting now that she's for her, that she hears from people who can hear, look, and then has to, she's the middleman. Customer can go direct to the website. Is there anything stopping us from just sharing those?
Neville, can I please just refer to Ken, who I understand's already started some work on such a page?
Yeah, thank you, Tanya. Yeah, we're aware of the information that comes through on those Friday reports. And we're working on a new page that will display the most relevant information, grading, etc. And should be updated every week. We're going to have draft that page this week, and I'll work with Tanya to finalise that.
Maybe test drive it with Councillor Foy because she has a special interest in this.
Sure, we can do that.
She can debug it for you.
And just have it so we can share it as a screenshot on social media. So, because the other aspect is the grading, and I think it's really relevant about the number of graders that we have in a certain area. I had asked that because the northern wood is actually a much larger land area in terms of kilometres compared to the southern area. And so I was told that there are 7 graders. Councillor Radich previously said there were 4, and then I was told there are 7. But I think it's not the number of graders as well. It's actually the frequency of how often the road is graded. but people have to complain. The way our current contract works is people have to complain to say their road needs fixing before they actually get their road graded. And I think that's a fundamental flaw in the way that our contract really is based on people complaining. So in terms of going forward and the asset management that Councillor McNally talked about, could we not have that a certain road based on its road classification be graded a certain amount of times per season? I'm not sure how it's done previously, but it's not working at the moment because people have to get really angry before anything gets done, and that's why they're frustrated at us in our role. Is there a response about that from either Tanya or the roading?
Can we have a briefing on the current methodology for what the levels of service agreement are for the contract and how that works?
Yes.
And then that can inform what the new contract looks like.
Yeah, through the chair, the current contract is it's an inspection lab. That is where the frequency of the grading and all these other routine stuff. Very good form. Going forward, that is not what it's going to be doing.
Not going to be included in the new list.
It's going to be a level of service.
Because it has changed since MTA aren't doing it anymore. But what happens is it's actually the contractor doing the inspections. So they have a vested interest to save money, you know, because it's a big company. But then also we only have one inspector of our own that works for us to go out and inspect the inspections. And we only inspect 20% of the inspections, is my understanding. So I think that from the response.
20%.
Is that correct?
10%.
10%. You only
So in this 900 kilometres were inspected, so that means we only went out and did 19. Is that 10%? We would only truth test 90 Ks worth.
Yeah, that's through the chair. That is how the contract is being written out, and with that current contract being extended to the next financial year. So we are trying to change that methodology.
You should give our northern councillors the checklist because they're driving our roads just to come to work.
all right.
And currently from this month, they have come up with strategic cycling grading in the north. So there might be a few changes that is coming up in this month, so, yeah.
Well, that will be welcome news for our ratepayers. Because one example is Te Hapua Road, which is really far away. I don't know if anyone's been to Te Hapua, but it's like the top, the very top.
Many times.
And so the argument, or the issue is that the grader has to go so far away and then, you know, it's taken away from other jobs. So I think if they knew the level of service, it'd be quite self-policing that they would tell you not if the grader's been there and done that frequency. Just like the mowing, if you told us what the actual frequency of what the contractors had to do, then people would tell us that they're not doing it if they weren't. That's only feedback.
My questions are on pertain to, oh, that's in the flesh. For page 83 and page 108. Page 83 for the finals contract, we had 12 signs cleaned. And on page 108 for the Mid-North contract, we had 21 signs. That's so amazing to see because a lot of them have got eczema type condition. What's it called? Moss, covered in moss. My question is, what signs are covered by the contract? Is it just the green or the brown info ones or the green directional ones? Or does it include, where do our town signs, our town signage, where do they sit? And are they captured by this? Because Fire Chiki, if she was here, would again go on about how our signs are, and they've got covered in moss, and most of it, like our entrances to a lot of our towns, you'll see them and they need to be clean. So it's great to see that we are in our contract getting signs cleaned. I'm trying to understand what signs those are and what signs they're not, and how we make sure that we capture all the signs that we are responsible.
With the chair, signs are including road nameplates, the directional sign. So that's the white and green and the other ones that are on.
The green, blue and brown ones. We do the Northern Naturally, you know, like every single Northern town's got one of those blue signs that says Northern Naturally. Kaikoi's got one and it's got your town slogan on it. Like what's Koukou's like the cultural junction of the north. Kaikoi's is the hub of the north. Who owns those? Because those are the ones I'm thinking are the ones that are, everywhere you go, it's kind of falling apart.
I don't know if it's top of my head yet, I'll chat with Ruben.
Because there are some that are on state highway, a lot of our towns on state highways, but a lot of our towns are on state. Be good to find out.
Just tātai, kia ora tātai. At the Patukuria submissions, day one, there was one of the kaumātua there suggested that there was a alternate bypass for Kirikiri. And I sort of wanted to hear from Councillor Court and McNally if his recommendation was good or not, because it could save a lot of money. And the other two, there were two men who also offered blocks of land at that hui, and I don't know whether we took them up or if anyone spoke to them about one to create an extra area for kids or people to walk to Puawaitanga, and the other one offered a piece of land or had suggested he would offer a piece of land for emergency kind of medical services. And I suppose the other question, because it's not on here, but is there a reason that we're not really pushing for a roundabout at Mangakahia Road in Kaikohe? Because it's a major state highway 1 through Fair. And I know these ones are dealing with whatever, and you have to be on a list, but yeah, those are just some queries to the roading committee, whether that is.
Starting at the last one, Mangakahia Road, we have put that forward historically because it's state highway. NZTA are usually reluctant starters for 10. There is an issue from memory with the width of the road there to get a 40 max truck around. We can do new designs now, like they're almost like pimples on the road, so you can drive over them. So it's a matter of people lobbying for that, so NZTA can consider it in their planning. It would be helpful, I think, if Kaikohe had a master plan, so there was some kind of evidential threshold behind what you're asking for, because at the moment it's just an ask. And that's something that I hope will follow out of the library project, and Nick might be able to comment on that at some point. The Kirikiri, there was a notice of motion in the previous council that this council purchase all land as it comes on the market that goes on the proposed route for the Kirikiri CBD ring road. And council has acquired a significant number of properties. There is a map somewhere, I don't have it, but there is a map that identifies what those properties are. And the ring road was initially put forward in 2006 as part of the structure plan. And it goes, I don't know how well you know Kirikiri, but if I was to tell you, it kind of starts at the BP on Kirikiri Road on the opposite side and goes down and around behind all of the shops, picking up Homestead Road, Fairway Drive, Augusta Place, Clark Road, King Street, and then out again to the Heritage Bypass. Right now, Becca are working on the designation process of that. I caught up with Becca as I was doing the relay for life around the town basin. on Friday, and I can't be there with it. Steve and I have been briefed historically on that. There has been some delay. I asked him what the delay was, and he said, to be fair, it's a bit of both. We haven't got the money to proceed. Council's still looking at the money, so we can proceed, and it's currently sitting with Keith. So once that designation is in place, that protects the land from people coming along and building on it. And then we need to have a conversation about how we fund and build that road, which we haven't done. And currently, and I need to be really careful here because we're in public open meeting. I'm aware that staff are talking with the owners of the bin property to see whether or not we can continue to road through their land. They don't have any legal obligation, I believe, to do that. So those are very carefully kind of conversations that are happening. The third one you mentioned was the gentleman who offered us land off the end of Waitokera Drive so we can have access through to Waitanga. We went to a defended resource consent hearing over that. We were challenged by two of the residents from Waitokera Drive. They were concerned, if you've been down Waitokera Drive, it's extremely narrow. They were concerned that if we had public access to the sports field, that the public would come and park down that road and create a road safety issue for them. There is some merit in that. So as a condition of the resource consent, we agreed not to provide any public access at all on Waitokera Drive. Now that resource consent can be revisited, but to do that, we would need to address the concerns of the residents of Waitokera Drive. And it would be a capital program. Did that cover all of it?
And just the other one was the medical emergency centre. That one of the guys had offered some land, his land.
It's not ringing a bell with me, but I am aware that the gentleman who owns the land next to Redwoods Cafe on State Highway 10 has lodged a resource consent for a 24-hour emergency care facility there. I'm not clear on where the status of that consent currently sits. I would like to add it to the action sheet though. We do need to have an all council briefing that Becca is doing in this space, and that might fall out of
Noted, we'll go, Councillor McNally.
The state of a 1215 roundabout has been brought up at RTC. The biggest obstruction or stoppage is loss of car parks, Main Street. The road for Waitokera is a legal road width. It's the seal formation that's narrow. There's plenty of room there. We just have to extend it. But I believe the resource consent has killed any consent of getting in that way anyway.
And I had Councillor Research, I don't know if you were stretching, but you down. Did you have a comment?
I might be stretching it, see, but
Then I'll take it back. Councillor McNally, right of reply.
No, but thanks.
We'll put the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed or abstentions? That's carried. We're now going to go to item 6.9 on road safety and traffic engineering. Moved by Councillor Research. Thank you, Councillor Research. Second it. Councillor Research.
no comments. The people are doing a good job. The right for government to execute some.
I think I wrote it on my. Anyway, Louis can sign this. I just was a bit confused on two things. This one, on page 129, there's a note from Reed that all attached photos are for internal use only. Please watch down social media or social media releases. This is the public agenda. It's going to be shared up there. It's already available. So does this need to get pulled? Okay, can that, make sure there's action? Okay. And then my other thing of note was just appreciate having our reporting back to us, because they're looking at there. And we're struggling to show their work to this council for the local share that we put into this incredibly important project. And on the first page, on page 125 of the report, Farmers Brief are the contract holders, but look at all of the community groups that they also work with for road safety and education programs across the farm. And it's quite expensive there. And road safety is so important because of what population. Or this is terrible, and council will share these with me. But look at the statistics for fatalities or serious injury crashes across the quarters in the farm. Every single one of those is terrible, and a lot of that comes down to road safety and education for driver behaviour that they drive. So these programs are incredible. I just wanted to highlight that. Anyone else?
I've just got another one today, so I'll send it to you now.
All right, we'll put the council research writer report. We'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed to abstentions, let's carry it. We're going to go to item 6.10, on page 110, which is our transport procurement strategy 25-27. Moved by councillor Foy. Right, get a seconder. Right, councillor McDonald, councillor Foy.
I was wondering if the staff were going to speak to this before I ask any questions.
I can do, yes. Yeah, yep, okay. Morena Koukou, through the chair, I'll take the book has been read, but briefly, this is an information report to provide oversight to the elected members around the draft transport procurement strategy. It's still a draft. We're required to complete a procurement strategy every 3 years, and previously the NTA have completed the last 2 strategies. And this is the first time that we've completed this in-house. And we are specific, in-house for the far north and specifically for FNDC roading activities. We've opted for a 2-year strategy from 2025 to 27. So it aligns with our shortened LTP. Usually they are a 3-year strategy, but because we don't have certainty on the financials in the 3rd year, NZTA were supportive of aligning this with a 2-year strategy. It means that we need to review this in 2 years' time to make sure it aligns with the next LTP. So the draft is currently with NZTA and they are reviewing it. We actually had a very good meeting with them on Friday and they gave us some really good feedback, and they have actually pushed back on a couple of items in the report. So on page 4, or actually on page 2 of the council committee report, the first 2 items have actually been revised. So I'll just brief you on what those are, just in case your questions might be around each. Page 4 of the strategy. Page 4 of 28? 4 of 28, yeah.
Executive summary.
Yeah, in the executive summary, that's right. So the first 2 exemptions that we were originally asking for was, one was the road maintenance and renewals contract. When Ed was here, he asked for us to apply for a 12-year contract term. And his rationale was that he wanted the contract renewal dates to align with the LTP planning cycle. So with that rationale, it could either have been a 9-year term or a 12-year term, and he wanted a 12-year term. NZTA are not comfortable with that at all. They feel that a shorter term allows us to provide value for money. It gives the suppliers certainty around the works,
but a 12-year term is actually just too long for their comfort, and it blocks out competitive supply, impacts the supply market. No other council has a 12-year O&M contract, and they didn't feel that we warranted to be an outlier. I've circled back with Rob Gilmore and Kevin Hoskins, and also talked about with the business, and the consensus is that we're very happy to go with the original proposal for a 10-year contract term proposed by the working party. And so that's what I've indicated to NZTA that we're going to ask for, and they're happy with that 10-year. And that becomes a 5 years plus extensions of 3 years and then 2 years respectively. And that's more defendable than the 12 years. And then the other pushback that NZTA have provided is the exemption to extend the term of the current lighting and maintenance renewals contract from 5 years. We were asking for an 11-year contract term, and that's also based on the rationale that Ed had to align with the LTP. Again, they're not happy with 11 years, so we're reverting back to 10 years, and that would be an additional 3 + 2 years on the current contract. They were happy with the other two requests for exemption around the Hokianga Ferry and the community road safety promotion activities. So the next steps are that NZTA will take we're going to provide a redraft to them, and then a covering letter with some of our rationale around why we're reverting back to the dates that I've just covered, and a covering letter. And then they will take that to the NZTA board on the 19th of June. And if they endorse that, then we can then take the strategy to council for formal adoption in July. And NZTA's expectation is once we have settled on the final draft of the strategy, then this becomes a public facing document, and we load this on our website to provide transparency and information to prospective contractors around how we intend to manage our large contracts going forward.
Thank you for that, Joe. Councillor Boyd.
I have a number of questions for Rob, but he's not here. Because my question was exactly the point that you had about the contract terms. It's actually the contract that determines the scope and ability of the contract to deliver, and what's in the contract or not in the contract is for procurement. So in the report, it says that the next contract is from 2026?
Yes, 1st of July 26.
And then this strategy is proposed until 2027? So for 2 years, 2025 until 2027, 1 year into the contract?
Yeah, yes, it covers the plan. So this is just the plan for how we're going to manage our contracts. Yeah.
So, because, I mean, maybe the other roading portfolio elected members can answer the questions. I don't feel comfortable with having this item unless I can speak to the roading people like Rob, because, for example, this determines the scope of how the contract will go out. Because I would like, for example, I would like to see the contract to have the spraying not part of the lump sum contract, and the cleaning of the culverts and water tables not part of the lump sum. Just remove heaps of the items out of the lump sum. But this, if we approve this document today, then this is essentially providing the scope and determination of how that contract will be laid out.
Can I just clarify, it might be helpful. So currently we're at a lump sum, but we are proposing to move with the new contract measure of value.
Okay.
So that Rob and Kevin are drafting what that will look like. Yeah.
Or approval by the new council.
It's
not being inside.
Yep.
It will be this council, because we're looking at going out to market around the beginning of August. So we'll have to have everything pretty sort of tied up and agreed and approved.
When are we going to be workshopping this then?
I would say July in terms of, I can't speak for the working party, but I think that's about the timeframe.
I'll go to Chief Executive.
Yes, so just to confirm what Anne's just outlined, so this procurement policy doesn't specify the contract. Council, why the contract is still being developed with the working group, and my guess is it gets workshopped in July, but and correct, we're going to be moving towards a measure of value basis for the contract as opposed to lump sum, which means council staff and the council voting team will be defining a lot of the works as opposed to relying on the contractor to, for the culvert clearing, for example. So that's the way things work.
Because I can see as well that there's the inclusion of the panel, which is a new item that Rob has introduced to our council so that we're faster to deliver. But it's only saying that that's under emergency and resilience work panel. There's no other work panel that's under maintenance and renewals, for example.
That'll be covered in the main contracts. There'll be two contracts, the same as.
But it's not, but it says here 2-stage shortlist followed by tender price submission. Yeah, I just don't feel comfortable with the questions that I have answering this now. Could it not wait until we have Rob or Kevin here? Or they already signed it off?
That, yes, they're happy with this. Yep, they've endorsed it. So, but ultimately, the committee is.
Challenge with timing. Because we, by the way, Michelle, the dates are wrong. 26. Gotta change those. Oh, maybe not. No, sorry, take that back. There's an issue with timing because the NZTA board have to approve this before we go to tender release to market in August. So we've got a timing issue.
It's already with the board, isn't it? Isn't that what Michelle just told us earlier? It's already gone.
But you're going to push back, so they still have a second bite at the pie, yeah?
We're now all aligned in terms of the agreement around the contract dates. So the transport business.
Understood. I thought we were still in negotiation about contract term. 12 years versus 10.
They've pushed back, and as a business, we've Rob and Kevin and the business have agreed that 10 years is more defendable. So that was the original contract term for the O&M contracts from the working party.
I interrupted. Sorry for the pity.
Oh, no, that's right. It was just as well, like for maintenance and renewals, it says here that there's the size and scope of works is for 2 contracts, north and south. Why wouldn't we consider 3 contracts, like north, south, west? We haven't discussed it. That's what I'm saying. This is determining the scope of how we form the contracts.
Okay, so it sounds like the transport business, the working party probably needs to convene a workshop with elected members sooner rather than later. Yeah, okay. I'll feed that back to Rob and Kevin.
I just wonder if, Felicity, if you have a look at page 4 and go down to the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th paragraph, and it's very clear there, the procurement strategy is developed to provide, and it says to meet subsidised funding requirements, which is NZTA.
Yeah.
It's completed on triennial frequency, which Michelle said earlier, requirement for continued national land transport funding investment is met. We have to do it.
Yeah.
And then the next paragraph says this strategy does not include any advanced procurement procedure. That's coming up with the contracts that will be developed.
What page are you on? Sorry?
Page 4, 135.
135.
Page 135.
Remove from page 137, page 6 of this. where under procurement approach, it says, on the 13th of March 2025, Council passed a resolution to exercise the final renewal from 1st of July to 30th of June. This will allow time to develop and plan the approach for 2 new maintenance and renewal contracts. Take out the definitive this will allow time to develop and plan the approach for new maintenance and renewal contracts. Otherwise, you are defining in our procurement strategy what the outcome will be without asking us first or asking the community.
Sorry, I want to a second because Steve and I have been working our horses off on this with the staff under delegated authority from this council, and that's where we've landed.
Well, then has anyone gone to North Hokianga to tell them, because they were promised everything at the very first meeting that you will have an opportunity with the contract renewal to potentially have your own. Every single little former county area, they all want to have their own roading contracts or do it themselves. So if we already decided that we're going back with a far north and a mid north, then we have been dishonest to the community and what we've been saying. And that's not on our transport portfolio holders, but I'm just saying, then we've been saying the wrong thing.
Through the chair, there is a significant portion of a percentage of subcontracting.
Yeah, but what they always say is don't make us subbies and make the big boys take people. We can do the mahi ourselves. So it's already been decided.
Well, I'm ready to let this lie on the table until at least we have a discussion and find out what the roading portfolio holders have been discussing, because that's news to me. I thought we were considering 3 contracts instead of 2.
We've had workshops with Rob. He's come here and he's workshop with us after Koukou. We've kept you guys in the loop all the way. So I am floundering here why this is suddenly news to everybody. There is an extensive section on here on local procurement. There's a very good section in here on how we will exempt people from the site-wise requirement or upskill them on site-wise. So this doesn't preclude anybody. I'm sorry, I'm just completely lost. It's just like somewhere along the line, the message just got lost.
To agree that I thought when we discussed SB4 and approved that at council that there was complete visibility on the working group and the appointing Rob Billmore to develop the new contract.
This is gone completely over my head, but I have missed 2, maybe 3 of this committee and the workshopping of it. So as long as it's been understood by all members here, and then that has been communicated by, say, Councillor Rakina to the North Hokianga Committee, because they're the ones who like them, Whangarua, the Wainui. I'm just thinking of all the examples when people have come at me to get me with claws out for their Oha roads, but then saying that they can fix it themselves, they can do it themselves, give them the opportunity. I say, guess what? We're going out for new contracts next year. It was next year, but that was 2 years ago, and then we extended all this. So, but if everyone's comfortable with where it's at, then I'm comfortable knowing that I must need workshops where that has been discussed. So,
one point.
I've got Councillor McNally still in it.
All right. Didn't I second it?
Yes.
I just wrote a reply.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a whole lot of stuff in here, but I think just for, if the elected members feel that the roading committee hasn't, Anne and I haven't reported back, I'll just read a few things out of it. Page 138, second paragraph. The primary objective of the panel is to establish a procurement solution that supports an efficient and effective route to market to enable slips and remedial works to be prepared as quickly as possible. One of those has already been done via the panel application with Hokianga slips. And then where the other one there is where improvement activities are determined to be outside the scope of the maintenance, renewals and operations contracts. So those are specific. This is just procurement. The actual road maintenance contract comes up, I think Michelle said a minute ago, kicking off in August. Some of the bridge inspection and asset management inspection stuff was activated in October. I don't think we've seen any data from that yet. That'd be good to see. Bottom of page 140, that section 17A review recommended that a full review of contract delivery options be undertaken, which has recommended a change of approach. Rob and Kevin are working on that. Go to page 142, long-term plan. Second to last paragraph, the goal being to repair our damaged infrastructure with a particular focus on roads. The Regional Transport Committee developed the Regional Land Transport Plan and Fund, which went to the Government Policy, National Land Transport Fund. So that plan was designed with specific note of what the government was planning to change. What we need an update on with a year gone, third of the time gone, will we meet the target of spending the money we got for that work? And then we go to Council Procurement Policy and Strategy, page 28 of the report, 143. The third bullet point, we get the best results from our spending. And the last bullet point, to identify opportunities for innovation and continuous improvement in planning, decision making and ongoing contract management. You know, these are all good points. The only comment I had there is the greatest contributor to the best results on our spending has been cost escalation, which is time. Time has a cost. Get the best value for money, we've got to deliver. It's, well, I was going to say at speed, but it has to be efficient. And then there's a lot of information in there. If you read it carefully, then you will see that it's actually been pretty well set out. And it has to be approved by NZTA so that we can get the funding. And to achieve the same level of funding, we have to spend the funding they've allocated for the various parts of the road maintenance and capital expenditure. On page 158, Fiscal Works Capital, the first comment, the remaining capital projects will be procured as required. So we haven't agreed to anything yet. And then council will determine appropriate supplier selection. I think that's already been covered off by the prioritisation, the panel prioritisation. So we can get to some subcontractors. And then probably the only other comment I have for Michelle is what KPIs do the procurement team have on them?
On the
KPI?
on
KPIs
us.
on the procurement team for delivery, design, saying for it. When we receive or a job's been approved, so we've got concept planning, everything's in place, go. When you go out to market, what KPIs from that point on the procurement team to deliver? Is there a specific time frame?
Well, it depends what approach we take to the market, what selection criteria we take, whether it's a 15-day or a 25-day or 6 weeks out in the market. So there's rules around how long we're supposed to be out in the market for. And then we aim to evaluate all the submissions within the first 2 weeks of tender close. And then we have a supply recommendation report, usually the following week after that. So it's a pretty quick turnaround time to identify the preferred suppliers and notify submitters and then go through your negotiation period before you follow the delegated financial approval route.
Yeah,
So,
the reason I asked that question, page 146, under best value for money, if you read that, and it's under section 20 of the Act, obtaining best value for money spent means purchasing a good or service that delivers the output approved for funding under section 20 in the most efficient and economic manner. Time is one of your biggest costs in anything we do. I hope that explains a little better for the elected members. If not, sorry to confuse you.
Go to Councillor Visa.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, look, I do appreciate that this is, as I said, is not the actual detail of the contract, and presumably we can actually stipulate some of those terms, because I do agree with the mayor. He did make some promises and actually have locals tender for some of the contracts. So that was there. But the question I have for example, on page 428, you've got an extension of the term of the road maintenance and renewals contracts. We're setting the term there. So you actually are delving into the actual nature of the contract. And you got pushed back from 12 to 9, and the argument that was used was that let's do alignment with the LTP for the 12. But what the Koukou said, no, make it 10. So make it less than that. So the question is, why didn't you go with 9? Because that would seem.
We could have, I don't think we've reached a consensus yet on whether it's 9 or 10. So what we've proposed is that we ask NZTA to endorse a maximum of 10 years. And then that gives us the ability to workshop and make decisions in-house as to the exact term of the contract. They're happy with that. And so I'm going to put that in the covering letter.
What is the average? You said no one's doing 12 throughout New Zealand. What's the average of that?
They seem to be moving to between 9 and 10 year contracts.
So,
yeah.
You know, given the arguments you used, I would prefer time. I also agree with longer days, too long, because we don't want to kill any competition, especially the higher tier ones. We'll just simply move away and take the gear. So certainly value for money is what I'm looking for. And some of the examples that we've seen done by local contractors would say it was significant. I mean, that's one reason why I want to actually see that there. The other thing, implicitly, and I've actually raised terms ago as well, implicitly raised it again. So in the detail of the contract, and I know it doesn't affect this one, don't forget, given the electronics is now available, especially if we go to the electric trucks, can you ensure that that is captured electronically as part of the contract? So you're not workshopping it today, but I'd like it just, I'm not to be lost. Thank you. And Rob Gilmore, as the councillor Foy raised before, I heard somebody say that he's been working with us, and I trust Nelly and Anne in that regard, which gives me confidence that it will be done. So that's correct. And those are my comments there. So as long as we're not going into the detail of the contract and keep our promises, me and what I'm happy with this document. Right here, I think we've got assurance on that, and I think the other things I think relate to the road maintenance contract which will affect it. And going with 2 rather than 3, I think maybe we should pull that out. Because that is assuming that the road maintenance contract is built out.
At this point, the procurement plan is based on a north-south split. So continuing with that, protecting that north-south.
Yeah, as long as that can change with the final road maintenance contract, or maybe if you want to change it. Thank you.
Councillor Foy, running for reply.
I guess in my response, I've got 2 questions to that because my right of reply in terms of any amendments relate to what Councillor Busich has just raised. Are we able to include that provision to allow for a third other than north-south, so it might be more southwest contract without actually moving an amendment to this? Or because based on what you've just said, the way this is written straight away precludes it as even being an option whatsoever.
So all the procurement planning that the working party has been, working towards is the north-south split. So the 2 contracts. NZTA have indicated that they're comfortable and happy with the 2 contract split. If we were to change that, I think we'd need to go back to NZTA and.
So what else is to be bolted?
What has it? My question.
Well, there's not enough mahi funds to do the mahi required.
So was there a council mandate? Because I thought the council signed on.
Yeah, we maintained it. We told Stephen Nance taught it for us, and so we have to respect that they have.
To be fair, not to do the final contract, though, I thought.
No, this is not the contract.
But this determines the scope of the contract.
Doesn't return the
There's nothing to stop a non-conforming tenant.
Can we get this guy on the
Make this
table?
contract until the end of next year. Did you even go out?
Until we've spoken to Rob?
It's just extremely important. Yeah, just a point of clarification. I think.
There's just too many conversations.
Can we have point of order? I thought councillor Boyle was on here.
She's asking if it can be left to live. I'm not sure why we'd be leaving it to live. This is just an information report. We're not asking for a decision today.
Oh, we should leave out with that then. It's just noting something.
It's receive only.
So you're asking us to receive a report. This isn't a council endorsement. We can change this.
I guess you can, yeah, you can direct us to go back and
We adopt strategies. We're not adopting this, we're receiving a report on it.
this is really an update on the draft. So this is still a draft, and then the council will get a decision opportunity to adopt it in July.
Well, based on that, I'd like to move an amendment that the question be asked to NZTA about the option of including a third contract. So instead of two, up to 3 contracts. So that's not precluded at this stage before we have that discussion. So the motion.
Note. Just note that question be asked before final adoption.
Rob Gilmore and Kevin Hoskins will be here for the workshop this afternoon.
Correct.
And ask them.
I don't see why we can't, the right of reply has been given, so I'm going to push the motion. With the note that we have a yarn and sort it out later. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed, or abstentions, that's carried.
Just make an observation. If a promise was made, under whose authority, and why would that promise not relate to the working group? Because that's put us in an awkward situation.
No promises have ever been made. Well, not under my watch. Even though if someone in the advocate said I promised them, I don't promise anything. Okay, unless I'm doing it myself, I don't trust this council to do it. We're going to go to. And it's, we received the Norfolk Young minute. Get a second there. I'll second. Councillor Message, anything?
Oh, just very quick comment. I'm really pleased with what's happening there. It's an excellent example on contract situation to working together with the local community and delivering results. You'll see on page 5 of that report, page 166, you'll see a comment made by John Bishop there. And this how it relates is that I was concerned about 2 things. One is that it's working so well that it'd be nice if the members that have probably into can transition into the new triennium. I realise that councillors will go off that and you'll be looking at that, and the new council can say you're not going to do that, or we are going to do that. But since the appointed members that are there and the work continues, that they can remain into maybe a year of the new triennium. The members will go off when the term's finished, and new ones will come on when they are appointed. But still working with staff that can function. That was my point 1. And point number 2, there are issues in there that have been noted by those involved which can make significant reduction and greater response should an emergency type situation occur, like a slip. Like when I was driving there, I saw the great work being done, so thanks to the team. But I noticed there was a slip, which I can go along with one loader and scoot up. One bucket load may be attractive with a load on it, might take 2. But why not actually utilise some of the skilled people who are well skilled, are coming back from Australia, running and starting up their own business where they can actually respond. And that's something we should be considering. We should be considered. In terms of promises made, was basically the new contracts are coming up and we look for opportunities where they can get involved. And the promise actual contracts or anything, just so we're clear. But just note that it's working really well, and thanks to the chair here, Councillor Rakana, and the work that's been done and the support of everybody else, and all the locals out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Research. I just have a question. And this is why, so when we had our agenda preview, we have a new action list for this committee. And that action list gives responsibility to those actions. It had staff members' names, and I asked for that to be changed to staff members' positions, so that it doesn't matter who that staff member is, the work's going to get done. And on page 166, I just want to know that this is still going to get done. We no longer have an head, and I don't actually know who Gareth is. So I see a lot of actions that have been put to a person who is no longer a staff member. So I want to make sure that all of these actions are not going to get lost because there's a number, and that someone is picking them up. And in the future, I would appreciate that all actions are tagged to a staff position rather than a staff person's name.
Councillor Rakina raised the same concerns. So anything that was previously allocated to the manager transportation, I'll pick up.
Thank you. Councillor Harker,
On the same page, 166, item C. So what happens when the Ngāti Haua rep doesn't turn up? Whanawhi gets left off the list as one of the slips. Okay.
Councillor Research, right to reply?
No.
Well, sorry, Councillor Court.
I just wanted to draw your attention to on page 165, bullet point under general items 4, the one credited to Liz Thomas. Halfway through it says, Ed advised economically we cannot check every drain every month. But operational maintenance and capital improvements need to be looked at, e.g. increasing the size of culvert or putting a chamber ahead of the culvert or level. And this was what I was referring to earlier, that we make these statements, but unless they're picked up by someone and actually driven through to the National Land Transport Plan, they're just comments at the table. The second thing is that this has obviously been a success, and this is great for the North Hokianga, but we do have other areas of the district that feel disadvantaged in the transport space. So I would like to make a bullet point that staff pick up after the election to discuss with the incoming council whether they do something similar in the very far north and around the Rāwhiti area. There'll be other areas, but those are the ones that immediately spring to mind where we might benefit from having working groups. We should do it all, but it should be to be fair.
Right, Councillor Research.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Court. Just Ed did raise that, but local people live there can and do check every culvert, whether it's raining, whether it's blocked or not, and passing that information on is something that they do. And that was happening in that meeting, not necessarily captured here. But I think it's great. One of the key things that why it was successful, if you look on page 170, you'll see this people involved. Probably elected members that are involved, 3 of us, including the chair of the community board. It's those local people that have that knowledge and committed. They all show, as Lee I'm sure will point out, and Councillor Wright will point out, is they are really committed and they hold us to account, and that's the key thing. If we can get this happening elsewhere, I'd say yeah, let's do it. But you need people in a community of a reasonable size to be committed to actually show up at those meetings, and it's got a feeling too. So it's been a success. Thank you.
All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed to abstentions? That's carried. I'll now move the motion that the public be excluded from the following proceedings of this meeting. Item 7.1, previous items of the bids. Lighting, maintenance and renewals contracts. In second, councillor Webster. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? That's carried. We're going to restart our recording. Cool. Back to our Koukou Transport and Infrastructure Committee meeting. In the public excluded section of our meeting, we had two items on the table. One was our previous minutes, which will remain in PX, and the second was a lighting, maintenance and renewals contract, 3, receiving a report on that. When that contract is finalised, the details of it will be made public. And I'll close us off with karakia. May the seas be calm, glistening shimmer like greenstone, and may the shimmering light dance across the pathway. Ko kia hora te marino kia ka papapainu te moana kia tere te karo i rohi I mua I tau kore. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
We're going to go to a shorter lunch period because we've got a guest here to talk to us about drug testing.